My name is Clara, and I used to believe that hard work could change anyone's life. 2 years ago, I landed a job as an executive assistant at Apex Global in the heart of the city. It was a massive company filled with bright lights, expensive suits, and endless glass walls. I thought I was extraordinarily lucky to work directly for Arthur Vance, the most powerful director in the firm. Arthur Vance was a strict, imposing man who rarely smiled or engaged in small talk. His voice was quiet, but when he spoke, every single person in the room stopped and listened. He demanded absolute perfection, precise organization, and complete loyalty from everyone around him. I spent 16 hours a day managing his schedule, arranging his private meetings, and organizing his heavy files. My life was simple, predictable, and focused entirely on climbing the corporate ladder. I needed this job to pay off my family's debt and secure a safe future for myself. Every night, I was the last person to leave the quiet, empty 50th floor of the building. I loved the peaceful silence after sunset, watching the city lights flicker from my tall office window. One rainy Tuesday evening, Mr. Vance left the building early for an urgent dinner with international investors. Before stepping into the private elevator, he handed me a heavy leather folder packed with thick financial documents. He told me to audit the foreign payment receipts and lock them inside the metal safe before midnight. His cold eyes stared directly into mine as he warned me never to share those files with anyone else. I sat down at my tidy desk, opened the heavy folder, and began cross-checking the long balance sheets. At first, everything looked completely normal, neat, and structured according to standard accounting rules. Thousands of dollars were moving daily to offshore supply companies for raw office materials and software licenses. But as I looked closer at the transaction codes, a strange, uncomfortable pattern began to emerge before my eyes. 3 main vendor accounts were receiving millions of dollars every single month for unspecified consulting services. Yet, when I searched the company database, those vendor accounts had no physical addresses, tax numbers, or phone contacts. The signature authorization on every single fraudulent transaction belonged directly to Arthur Vance himself. My hands began to tremble uncontrollably as the dark reality slowly sank into my terrified mind. My respected, powerful boss was secretly stealing millions of dollars directly from our company's accounts. I stared at my computer screen in total shock, my heart pounding loudly in the quiet office. The numbers on the balance sheet did not lie. Millions were vanishing into phantom bank accounts. I quickly exported the transaction receipts and backed up the encrypted logs onto a small, blue flash drive. I hid the drive deep inside my handbag, locked the safe, and left the building with shaking hands. That night, I could not sleep for a single minute as terrifying thoughts raced through my head. Should I report Arthur Vance to the board of directors, or should I go directly to the police? If I spoke up, I was risking my entire career, my safety, and my family's financial stability. The next morning, I arrived at the office early, trying my best to appear calm and composed. I sat at my desk, organized my morning reports, and drank my lukewarm coffee as if nothing had changed. At 9 sharp, Arthur Vance walked out of his private corner office, wearing his usual sharp charcoal suit. Instead of walking past my desk as he always did, he stopped dead in his tracks right beside me. He placed a warm, expensive cup of fresh coffee on my desk and leaned down very close to my ear. His voice was smooth, quiet, and unnervingly calm, but his words sent a cold shiver down my spine. "You stayed up very late auditing those files last night, Clara," he whispered with a faint chilling smile. "I hope you found everything clear and completely satisfactory to your personal standards." I looked up into his cold, dark eyes, completely paralyzed by a wave of pure, silent terror. He knew I had found the hidden accounts, and he was subtly warning me to stay completely quiet. "Everything was perfectly in order, Mr. Vance," I replied, forcing my trembling voice to sound steady. He patted my shoulder gently, gave a satisfied nod, and turned back toward his large private office. "Good girl," he added softly before closing his heavy wooden door, leaving me breathless at my desk. I knew then that I was walking on extremely thin ice, trapped in a dangerous game with a monster. The next few days at the office felt like an agonizing psychological nightmare. Every time Mr. Vance walked past my desk, I felt his intense, watchful gaze resting on me. He began giving me smaller, unusual tasks that felt less like administrative work and more like subtle tests. He requested detailed list updates of every employee who had administrative access to the central server logs. I realized he was actively trying to track down who might have noticed the missing millions. He was systematically closing every security loop, ensuring no trace of his financial crime remained visible. I knew I had to act fast before he completely wiped the server records clean forever. On Thursday afternoon, while Mr. Vance was in a high-level executive meeting, I took a massive risk. Using the master access key I had copied earlier, I logged into the core financial system again. I searched for the 3 phantom vendor accounts, searching deep within their encrypted transaction histories. To my total horror, I discovered that another massive transfer was scheduled for the end of the week. $5 million were set to be moved into a private bank account registered in Switzerland. This was not just routine embezzlement. This was his final, massive exit strategy from the firm. Suddenly, the heavy glass door of the office swung open, and the sound of footsteps echoed down the hall. My heart jumped into my throat as I frantically minimized the financial window and closed the tab. Mr. Vance walked into the room, holding a single sheet of paper with a sharp, terrifying expression. "Clara," he said softly, standing directly over my desk with a towering, intimidating presence. "I noticed an unauthorized login attempt from this terminal just 3 minutes ago," he continued coldly. "Is there something specific you are searching for? Or are you simply losing your professional focus?" I swallowed hard, looking directly into his sharp eyes while trying to keep my posture relaxed. "I was just updating the quarterly budget reports you requested earlier, Mr. Vance," I lied smoothly. He stared at me in complete silence for 5 excruciating seconds before letting out a dry, chilling laugh. "Be very careful, Clara," he whispered softly, leaning down. "Curiosity has ruined many promising careers here." I felt a cold drop of sweat trickle down my neck, but I kept my posture firm and steady. "I am only focused on my work, Mr. Vance," I replied, maintaining direct eye contact with him. He stayed silent for a moment, his sharp gaze searching my face for any visible sign of panic. Then, he slowly straightened his back, adjusted his gold cufflinks, and offered a tight, artificial smile. "Glad to hear it," he said, turning on his heel. "Pack your things early tonight. You look exhausted." When he finally walked back into his private office, I released a long breath I didn't realize I was holding. I knew that my time was rapidly running out. He was watching every single key press on my computer. That evening, I decided I couldn't handle this dangerous burden alone any longer. I needed a trusted ally inside the company, someone with real authority who could bypass Vance's control. I thought of Marcus Chen, the head of internal security, known for his unyielding integrity and strict morals. Marcus had worked at Apex Global for over 15 years and was respected by every single board member. At 7 in the evening, after most staff had left, I walked down to the security department. Marcus was sitting alone in his office, reviewing security camera feeds on a massive wall of monitors. "Clara," he said, looking up with a warm, surprised smile. "What brings you down here so late?" I closed the heavy wooden door behind me, pulled out the blue flash drive, and placed it on his desk. "Marcus, I need you to look at these files right now," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Arthur Vance is embezzling millions, and his final transfer of $5 million happens tomorrow night." Marcus froze, his warm smile instantly vanishing as he stared at the small metal drive on his desk. He plugged it into his secure terminal and began reviewing the transaction sheets, line by painstaking line. As the dark evidence unfolded before his eyes, his face turned pale and his jaw tightened in disbelief. "This is massive, Clara," Marcus whispered, looking up at me with grave concern in his eyes. "If Vance realizes you have this data, he will destroy your life before you can even leave this building. We need to present this directly to the managing board tomorrow morning," I urged him desperately. Marcus stayed silent for a long moment, staring at the screen, before slowly nodding his head in agreement. "Meet me here at 7 sharp tomorrow morning," Marcus instructed softly. "We will go to the board together." I felt a massive wave of relief wash over me as I thanked him and walked out into the cool night air. For the first time in days, I felt a glimmer of hope that justice would finally prevail over corruption. However, as I stepped onto the quiet street below, a sleek black sedan slowly pulled up beside the curb. The tinted rear window rolled down, revealing the cold, shadow-covered face of Arthur Vance, staring directly at me. "Get in, Clara," Mr. Vance said, his tone dangerously smooth as the car door clicked unlocked. I stood frozen on the sidewalk, my heart racing as I realized he had been tracking my movements all night. Refusing his command in the dark, empty street felt far more dangerous than simply stepping into the vehicle. I took a deep breath, opened the heavy door, and sat on the cold leather seat beside him. The car immediately accelerated down the dimly lit avenue, moving smoothly through the quiet midnight traffic. "You look tense, Clara," Mr. Vance remarked softly, staring straight ahead at the open road. "I saw you spending quality time with Marcus Chen down in the security department a few minutes ago." Marcus was helping me verify some outdated administrative access logs, I replied, forcing my voice to sound neutral. "Is that so?" he asked, letting out a low, unsettling laugh that chilled me to the core. It is fascinating how loyal people pretend to be until a better financial opportunity presents itself. He reached into his tailored jacket, pulled out a familiar blue flash drive, and tossed it onto my lap. My breath caught in my throat as I recognized the exact drive I had given to Marcus just minutes earlier. "Marcus has worked for me for over 10 years, Clara," Mr. Vance explained with a cold, victorious smile. "Did you really believe he would risk his $1 million retirement fund for a junior financial auditor like you?" The world around me seemed to spin as the devastating truth hit me like a physical blow. Marcus was not my ally. He was Mr. Vance's personal safety net, paid to catch anyone looking too closely. "You are smart, Clara, but you are painfully naive about how true power operates," Mr. Vance continued calmly. "By tomorrow morning, those files will be completely scrubbed, and you will be blamed for the entire system breach. You will sign a full resignation letter tonight, or I will ensure your professional reputation is permanently destroyed." He signaled the driver to pull over near a dark, secluded alleyway on the edge of the city. I stared at the blue drive in my hand, feeling complete despair wash over my entire body. Yet, deep inside my chest, a small spark of anger suddenly replaced the paralyzing fear I had felt. Mr. Vance believed he had won, but he had made one fatal mistake during his elaborate trap. He didn't know that I had already uploaded an encrypted copy of those files to a cloud server hours ago. I looked up at Mr. Vance, letting a slow, deliberate smile replace the terror on my face. His cold expression faltered for a fraction of a second as he noticed my sudden change in demeanor. "Did you really think a physical drive was my only backup, Mr. Vance?" I asked, my voice steady and firm. 3 hours ago, I uploaded every single encrypted audit log to an offshore cloud server," I continued. "If I do not enter a security passkey into my phone before 8 tomorrow morning, those files publish automatically. They will be sent directly to the Federal Financial Authority, the Board of Directors, and every major news outlet." Silence filled the car as the reality of my words slowly sank into his calculated mind. The smug, victorious look on his face instantly shattered, replaced by a dark, dangerous fury. "You are playing a very dangerous game, Clara," he snarled, leaning closer as his hands clenched into fists. "I am not playing a game, Mr. Vance," I replied calmly, looking him directly in his dark eyes. "I am giving you an exit strategy. You resign quietly tomorrow, and you step down from Apex Global forever. If you attempt to frame me, transfer that $5 million, or touch my career, the truth goes public instantly." He stared at me in disbelief, realizing that his years of absolute control had finally come to an end. For 10 excruciating seconds, no one moved or spoke inside the dimly lit, stationary luxury vehicle. Finally, Mr. Vance closed his eyes, took a deep, shaky breath, and gave a reluctant, silent nod to his driver. "Take her back to her apartment," he ordered quietly, his voice completely drained of its former dominance. The car pulled back onto the road, and 20 minutes later, I stepped out onto the cool street near my building. As the black sedan disappeared into the night, I looked up at the quiet night sky and took a deep breath. I had stood up to a powerful, corrupt executive, survived his mind games, and protected my own future. The fight was finally over, and for the first time in weeks, I was completely, truly free.